The series begins with a police officer in the crimes unit named Önem, who is speaking at a press conference about the crimes committed by men against women, explaining that most of these crimes are committed by relatives or friends. Suddenly, Önem gets anxious and can't continue, so Deputy Haluk steps in for her and reassures the public that crime rates have dropped and that they're working hard to solve any case that occurs. The next day, when Önem arrives at the police station, she's met by Officer Hassan, who takes her down to the basement archives and tells her the place is known as the graveyard. Later, she goes to Haluk's office, clearly frustrated and upset because she doesn't want to work in the basement and feels like she won't be able to solve cases from there. He tells her she has to follow the rules and that it was already enough that she didn't finish reading the statement yesterday. She tells him she couldn't lie and pretend they have everything under control or that crime rates are decreasing when they're actually rising every day. Önem then heads to a new crime scene where she learns from her colleagues that they received a report about a car engulfed in flames. Inside, they discovered a completely burned body. She meets Fariha from the forensic team, who tells her they don't have enough evidence yet. The forensics team starts collecting fingerprints and searching for anything salvageable from the vehicle, and they find a wallet and a phone belonging to the victim, both badly burned. They also determine the body belongs to a young woman. Later, while Önem is in the basement with Hassan and their colleague Serdar, Haluk's son, Hassan tells them that the victim was afraid of someone because they found pepper spray and a whistle with her, meaning someone was threatening or following her. The next day, Önem visits Fariha in the morgue to see what she's found. Fariha tells her the victim had fractures in her face and 2 broken fingers, all of which happened before the fire, meaning she was tortured before being burned. She also shows her a metal tag found on the victim's neck engraved with her health insurance code. Using that code, Önem identifies the victim as Elif, a 28-year-old woman who worked as a producer on a TV program. Önem decides to visit the channel where Elif worked. There she meets Metin, the host of the show Elif produced, and Yasemin, the coordinator. She asks them about Elif, and Yasemin tells her Elif didn't come to work that morning, and when they tried calling, her phone was off. Metin asks Önem if something happened to Elif, and she informs him that she's missing, and her family filed a report. Metin and Yasemin are shocked because Elif had cut ties with her family, and they knew nothing about her life. Her family is extremely strict and had killed her older sister years ago in the name of honor. Önem also learns from them that Elif had no close friends and wasn't in a relationship. Meanwhile, Hassan and Serdar receive information from Berk, who is examining the burned car. He manages to restore the license plate and identifies the car as belonging to Ahmed, Elif's brother. Serdar tells Önem that Ahmed, the eldest brother, killed their sister Zulal when he was just 14 because she ran away with her boyfriend. He is known to be mentally unstable, violent, and has a criminal record of threats and extortion. He then shows Önem Elif's call history, and all her recent calls were work-related. The next day, Önem goes to Haluk's office and finds Deputy Gökhan there, but he leaves to give them privacy. Haluk then tells Önem that she and her team need to work together and solve the case quickly because Gökhan is waiting for any updates. She informs him that the IT department couldn't fix Elif's phone, so she'll have to go to Sofia. Haluk is shocked and immediately rejects the idea because he can't stand her. Önem goes to see Sofia anyway. Sofia is extremely skilled in anything related to technology, so Önem sits with her and asks her to work with her on the case. She shows her Elif's burned phone, but it's clear Sofia doesn't want to work with the police. Önem explains that she'll only be dealing with her personally. Meanwhile, Serdar and Hassan go to the house of Ahmed, Elif's brother, but find that he's not home. They ask a neighbor if he knows where Ahmed might be. That night, Hassan and Serdar head to a nightclub after the neighbor told them Ahmed usually hangs out there. The place turns out to be an underground wrestling and betting ring, and Ahmed is competing. Hassan and Serdar clear everyone out so they can arrest him. That same night, Önem returns home and is greeted by her daughter, Sude. Önem is upset with her because she found out from school that Sude didn't attend that day. Sude tells her she just couldn't bring herself to go. The next day, Sofia shows up at the workspace where Önem, Hassan, and Serdar operate. She tells them she managed to repair the phone, but it's completely empty. No photos, no messages, no call logs. But strangely, the phone's memory is half full. While digging deeper, she found an app that stores photos and files, but it's locked with a passcode. She tells them she'll need a week to break into it. Later, Önem and Hassan sit down with Ahmed to question him. As soon as they accuse him of killing Elif, he completely breaks down, furious and emotional. Serdar walks in and threatens him with his gun to force him to calm down. Ahmed finally sits on the floor, overwhelmed, and tells Önem that he loved Elif deeply, and there's no way he could ever think of hurting her. He then tells them he didn't kill Zulal. Their father had decided to sell her to a wealthy man for money, but Zulal ran away. Their father believed she had dishonored the family and ordered Ahmed to kill her. Ahmed refused, but his father ended her life himself and forced Ahmed to go to prison in his place. Ahmed continues and says that Elif came to him 2 months ago asking for his car. Önem realizes that Ahmed knew who Elif was afraid of and that she had been beaten and tortured. But Ahmed refuses to speak, so she tells him she understands he wants to take revenge for his sister, but he won't be able to do that because they'll place officers on him around the clock. His only option is to help them and talk. Ahmed finally begins to open up and tells them everything. From him, Önem learns that Elif had been meeting a man named Erdal, someone well known for talking about men's and women's rights on TV programs. He's biased toward men and strongly opposes the idea of equality. Önem then heads to the TV channel where he's filming his show. Önem decides to step onto the set, sit beside Metin, and join the episode. She immediately confronts Erdal on air, telling him that he encourages men to be harsh with women under the excuse of rejecting equality. Because of men like him, many women are too scared to speak up about the violence they experience. Erdal gets angry at her accusations, but Önem tells him she's not there to argue. She's there to reveal the truth. Right there on live television, she announces that they've identified the burned body, and it belongs to Elif, who used to work as a producer on this very show. She shocks everyone by revealing that Erdal had been in an illicit relationship with Elif despite being married. When Elif learned he was married and tried to leave him, Erdal refused to let her go. He began treating her violently, beating her and torturing her to the point that she ended up in the hospital once because of him. Erdal breaks down and accuses Önem of lying, but Önem, Hassan, and Serdar arrest him on air for the murder of Elif. The next day, Sofia is sitting with Önem, telling her that all of Turkey is talking about her bravery. Suddenly, Haluk storms in, furious, and kicks Sofia out because he wants to speak to Önem alone. Haluk is livid about what she did, telling her that the way she handled the arrest was wrong and could cause them serious problems. Önem gets frustrated with his reaction and submits her resignation. Later, when Erdal's lawyer arrives, Önem meets with him and learns that Erdal completely denies killing Elif. Erdal is angry and upset about the accusations, insisting to Önem that he isn't the one who ended her life. Önem then asks Sofia, Hassan, and Serdar to dig into anyone who might have been connected to Elif. Around the same time, Önem receives a call from Sude's school principal. She rushes there and learns that Sude caused 2 of her classmates to end up in the hospital, in addition to her repeated absences throughout the week, fights with teachers, and constant yelling. Önem is shocked, but Sude denies it and says her classmates provoked her and started everything. Önem believes her and requests that the principal form a disciplinary committee to investigate the incident and determine who was truly at fault. She then takes Sude and leaves. At home, Sude tries to explain what happened, that she was defending herself because the other kids wanted to beat her up, but Önem still decides to punish her. She confiscates her phone, gives her an old one instead, and tells her she's banned from using her real phone for a week. She'll also personally take her to school every day to make sure she goes and isn't skipping classes behind her back. Sude gets angry and storms into her room. The next day, Önem and Feriha visit a women's shelter after learning that Elif stayed there for 2 months. The shelter manager explains that Elif came hiding from her boyfriend because she was terrified of him, but the shelter rules didn't suit her job since no one is allowed to leave after certain hours. That's why she left after 2 months. Önem asks if anyone in the shelter had problems with Elif. The manager tells her that Elif and a woman named Meltem didn't get along. Önem calls Meltem in for questioning and asks if she really fought with Elif at the shelter. Meltem denies harming her. At that moment, Sofia finally cracks the passcode on the secret app in Elif's phone and discovers hidden messages. Among them is a message Elif sent to Meltem saying that BK was watching her, and she needed to disappear. BK is the secret code name used between Meltem and Elif. Önem confronts Meltem with the message and asks her to confess and reveal who BK is. Meltem says it's just a shorthand they use whenever talking about any dangerous, unhinged man. Önem and her team then search Elif's apartment. Hassan finds a broken cigarette ashtray on the floor, and Burke finds a single blonde hair on Elif's bed. After analyzing the evidence, Burke identifies both the fingerprint and the owner of the blonde hair. It belongs to a girl named Sevda. Hassan, Serdar, and Önem head to Sevda's place. Önem knocks on the door and identifies herself as a crime unit officer. She's shocked to find Metin, the TV host, inside Sevda's home. Önem immediately asks Sevda about her relationship with Elif, but Sevda denies knowing her at all. Önem confronts her, telling her that they found Sevda's fingerprints in Elif's apartment, as well as a strand of her hair. Sevda is stunned. At that moment, Metin steps in and claims that Sevda only helped Elif move her things and must have simply forgotten. When Önem tells him they need to take Sevda to the station for questioning, he refuses, claiming she isn't feeling well. Suddenly, Sevda makes a hand gesture signaling that she's in danger and quickly shuts the door. Önem, Hasan, and Serdar storm the apartment and arrest Metin. During Sevda's interrogation, she breaks down and reveals that Metin had been beating and torturing her ever since she told him she wanted to leave. He forced her to go with him to the TV studio so he could keep her under his watch, terrified she might escape. Elif noticed the bruises on her body and realized she was suffering with Metin, so she helped her run away and stay with her. When Metin found out, he began stalking and threatening Elif until she eventually disappeared. Sevda collapses into tears as Önem tries to calm her down. Önem then interrogates Metin, but he responds coldly, insisting they have no actual proof that he killed Elif. Önem grows furious. The next day, Metin is released from custody, and Önem drives him home with Serdar and Hasan. When they arrive, Metin is shocked to find Ahmed, Elif's brother, waiting at his doorstep, clearly ready to take revenge. Metin panics and begs Önem for protection, but she refuses and reminds him that he's the one who claimed he didn't kill Elif, so he shouldn't be afraid. Terrified for his life, Metin rushes back to the car and tells Önem he wants to change his statement. Later, Önem meets with Haluk and Gökhan to hand them the case file and inform them that she arrested the person responsible for Elif's death. He confessed, even though he keeps trying to deny it. Soon after, Gülseren, Erdal's wife, arrives at the police station wanting to file a complaint. She says he has been abusing and threatening her. At the press conference, Önem speaks publicly about the case. Erdal is expecting her to issue a formal apology for arresting him on live television and accusing him of killing Elif, but Önem shocks him by revealing his wife's testimony, and the officers arrest him again in front of everyone. A few days later, Önem wakes up to a phone call from Serdar. He tells her she needs to come immediately. They've received a report about a young woman's body found in a trash container. Önem and her team arrive at the crime scene. The forensic team begins examining the body, and Feriha notices bruises on the victim's neck, as well as traces of drugs around her nose. Önem spots a homeless girl named Papatia nearby and approaches her, asking if she saw what happened to the body found in the trash container. Papatia gets nervous and says the Blue Devil is the one who did it. Önem then notices that she's carrying 2 bags and asks if she took one of them from the trash. Papatia panics, drops the bag, and walks away. When Önem and Serdar open it, they find that it belongs to the victim. Her wallet is still inside, along with her ID. They learn her name is Nafise, and Önem tells Serdar to pull up everything he can about her. The next day, Serdar and Sofia get into an argument over the case. Serdar believes Nafise may have died from a drug overdose and that no one actually killed her. Maybe her friends panicked and dumped her body. Sofia refuses to accept that explanation and completely rejects his theory. Önem steps in to calm them both down before heading with Serdar to Nafise's family home. Her family turns out to be very conservative and deeply religious. Önem learns from Nafise's mother that she spoke to her daughter the day before, and Nafise told her she was spending the night at a friend's place from university, though she didn't mention a name. They also say Nafise was studying religion and wanted to give sermons to women at the mosque. When Önem asks if they knew their daughter was using drugs, Nafise's father gets angry and denies it completely. Önem then sits down with Munevver, Nafise's sister, and asks why their father became furious the moment drugs were mentioned. Munevver gets uncomfortable and explains that their brother Mehmet once fell into a drug addiction and followed the devil's path, but he eventually repented and returned to God. She insists that Nafise could never be involved in drugs because she studied religion and made videos of herself reciting the Quran. Serdar later goes to see Mehmet, but finds him extremely withdrawn, almost detached from reality. He seems uninterested in learning how his sister died and doesn't even care about attending her funeral. At the station, Önem and the team learn that Nafise had been living a double life, one as a devout religious girl and another as a free-spirited young woman. The next day, Önem goes to Nafise's university and meets her classmates. They tell her that Nafise studied music and sang, and that she was indeed addicted to drugs. They also mention she had problems with a girl named Gülgün, who was jealous of her because both wanted to become singers, and Nafise was outperforming her. Önem goes to speak with Gülgün, who turns out to be the daughter of a famous artist. Önem asks her about Nafise, their relationship, and why they fought. Gülgün explains that competition is normal in their field. Önem then asks how Nafise managed to sign a record deal and perform at a nightclub while Gülgün didn't, despite being the daughter of a well-known singer. Gülgün says Nafise had a strange energy and admits she suspected Nafise was using drugs. She also reveals that their music professor, Emrah, was particularly interested in Nafise and helped her a lot. Önem and Serdar visit Emrah and ask when he last saw Nafise. He tells them he liked encouraging her because she was talented. On the night of the crime, he was at the nightclub where Nafis performed. Her classmates were there too, but he left early. Later, when Önem and her team gather again, they all suspect Emrah is lying and hiding something. So Önem and Serdar decide to visit the nightclub. When they arrive, they're shocked to find 3 young men beating up the club owner. The moment one of them sees the police, he runs. Serdar tries but fails to catch him. The other 2 try to escape from Önem, but she shoots one of them in the leg. The last one attacks her, and she struggles with him while the rest of the officers are called in to arrest them. They sit down with the nightclub owner, who tells them his name is Israfil. He explains that Emrah wasn't romantically involved with Nafise and wasn't stalking her. He really did leave before she did. Israfil then tells them the man who escaped earlier is named Tekin, and he's the one who'd been harassing Nafise. Tekin works as a driver, and one time when Nafise rode with him, he sexually assaulted her. When he later came to the nightclub looking for her, Israfil kicked him out. That's why Tekin showed up today with 2 friends to beat him. Afil also confirms that Nafise really was addicted to drugs. Later, Önem is in the morgue with Feriha and is shocked to learn that the cause of death wasn't drugs at all. It was strangulation. Nafisa's stomach was clean, showing she hadn't taken any substances. The traces of drugs around her nose suggest the killer deliberately staged the scene to make it look like an overdose. Hassan then discovers through the investigation that Tekin had previously been arrested for drug possession and use. The next day, Serdar arrives at Tekin's location, only to find police already there. Tekin is attempting suicide by setting himself on fire. Thinking quickly, Serdar disguises himself in clothes he borrows from a homeless man and approaches Tekin, pretending to be just as broken and suicidal. He asks Tekin why he wants to die, and Tekin breaks down, saying his girlfriend died. At that moment, officers seize Serdar, believing he's part of the chaos, and arrest him. Later at the station, Önem interrogates Tekin and accuses him of killing Nafise, but he denies it and insists he loved her and wanted to marry her. He even bought her a ring. Tekin then claims that the person who killed Nafis was her brother Mehmet because he didn't want her singing. He tells Önem that if they check his record, they'll see Mehmet once went to prison for killing his friend and that he used to deal drugs. The next day, Serdar and Hassan head to the place where Mehmet has been staying. They search his things and find a hidden phone, forcing Mehmet to unlock it. They find a video of Nafisa singing. Hassan and Serdar realize Mehmet had been watching her secretly, so they arrest him immediately. Back at the station, Önem interrogates Mehmet and accuses him of killing his sister. Mehmet denies everything. Hassan confronts him with a bag of drugs found in the pocket of a 15-year-old boy near the mosque where Mehmet had been spending time. They accuse Mehmet of killing Nafise because he discovered she had removed her hijab, was singing, and had drifted away from the religious life he believed in. When they confronted him about being a hypocrite, pretending to be religious while still dealing drugs, he killed her out of rage. But Mehmet breaks down and insists none of it is true. The next day, Munevver, Nafisa's sister, visits Önem and tells her she heard they arrested Mehmet. She says he could never kill Nefis. He loved her, and they were close. She explains that a month and a half ago, a girl from university named Özge came to their house and told them Nafise was lying to them, that she wasn't studying religion, but studying music and singing in nightclubs. Munevver didn't tell her parents because she didn't want to break their hearts. She told Mehmet instead, but he wasn't angry. He said Nafise was responsible for her own choices before God, and no one had the right to interfere with her life. That's why Munevver is certain he didn't kill her. Önem then goes to meet Özge to ask why she went to Nafisa's family to expose her secret double life. Özge admits openly that she did it out of jealousy because Nafise signed a record deal and began performing in clubs. Even their professor Emrah helped Nafise, while no one noticed Özge's talent. She says she was jealous, but she never thought about hurting Nafise and would never do such a thing. She tells Önem about the homeless woman Papatia, explaining that Nafise used to take care of her because Mehmet had killed Papatia's son, who was once his friend. She believes Papatia wanted revenge on Mehmet and killed Nafise. Önem is stunned by what she hears and immediately heads out with Hassan and Serdar to arrest Papatia. When they search her bag, they find Nafisa's phone inside. They arrest her and take her to the station. Önem notices that Papatia keeps repeating the same sentence over and over. The blue devil did it. Hassan learns that Papatia suffers from severe arthritis and that her hands shake constantly, making it physically impossible for her to overpower Nafise, strangle her, and dump her body. When they manage to unlock Nafisa's phone, they find a video she recorded of Israfil selling drugs. The moment he saw her filming, he attacked her. The next day, Önem and the team interrogate Israfil and confront him with the video. He becomes extremely nervous, especially when he learns that Papatia saw him strangling Nafise and dumping her in the trash container. Israfil tries to deny everything, but eventually breaks down and confesses. He explains that he had spent all his money on his nightclub and later went bankrupt. Out of desperation, He began selling drugs. When Nafis confronted him, he begged her not to report him. But she insisted on going to the police. He strangled her with a plastic bag, killing her, the same bag that contained the drugs he sold. He then dumped her body in the trash. He admits that Nafise was never using drugs and that he was the one who spread those rumors. Later, Mehmet meets Papatia and collapses, begging her to forgive him for killing her son back when he was a different, troubled person. A few days later, the police receive a report about a dead girl found in a lake. A local resident named Doğan Raf states that people in the area are crazy and kill stray dogs and throw them into the lake for fun. The forensic team discovers that the girl had been dead for 2 weeks. Her body is decomposed and her features unrecognizable. At the morgue, Feriha notices expensive dental implants, indicating the victim came from a wealthy family. She also finds colored contact lenses in her eyes and burn marks on her neck. Önem and her team begin a full search through missing person reports involving wealthy families. They find 3 missing girls from the past week. Then they check dental records to see if any had recently visited a dentist. One profile matches perfectly, a girl named Elida. Her mother, Maside, comes to the morgue and collapses in grief after identifying the body as her daughter. Önem tries to comfort her. Matside explains in her statement that Elida worked from home in investment. A few days earlier, she tried calling her but got no answer. She assumed her daughter was asleep as usual, but when hours passed, she contacted her ex-husband Yalçın so they could file a missing person report. Önem asks about Yalçın, and Matside describes him as a calm, kind man. Their separation had been peaceful. When he learned that Elida was missing, he was devastated and tried to help in any way he could. Önem asks her not to tell Yalçın that Elida's body has been found yet. The investigation later reveals that Elida had been working out at a gym with a trainer named Serhat, 27. Serhat was very interested in her and had tried several times to get closer to her. Hassan and Serdar go to the gym and find Serhat with Elida's car and her license. He claims that Elida gave him both the car and the license. He even tries calling her so she can confirm it herself, but her phone is switched off. Meanwhile, at the morgue, Feriha discovers from examining Elida's body that she died from being drowned with tap water, not lake water. She also finds burn marks and signs of torture all over her body and confirms she was assaulted before she died. During Önem's interrogation of Serhat, he tells her he hasn't seen Elida for more than 2 weeks. She never answered his calls and never came back for her car. Önem is shocked he didn't think to call the police, but Serhat insists he didn't believe it was serious enough to report. She then asks him about the girl who filed a harassment complaint against him. Serhat's expression immediately darkens. Hassan later discovers through the investigation that Yalçın had been married before Elida, and his first wife has been missing for 6 years. Önem is stunned, and Serdar sits down with Yalçın to question him. He asks why he and Elida divorced, but Yalçın refuses to answer. Serdar starts provoking him and mentions that they interrogated Serhat because he had a romantic relationship with Elida, and they had exchanged messages and photos. Yalçın becomes furious and accuses Serdar of lying, insisting he won't say another word without his lawyer. Later, Önem continues the interrogation and asks him to cooperate if he truly wants to know what happened to Elida, especially since he is now one of the suspects, given that his first wife is still considered missing. Yalçın tells her that his ex-wife Yashin isn't missing. She ran away to Sweden with her boyfriend, but her family refuses to accept the truth and insist she's missing. He explains that this situation made him overly jealous and ultimately destroyed his marriage with Elida. Önem shows him a picture of Elida's body and tells him she was assaulted multiple times before her death. Yalçın collapses into tears. The next day, the crime scene team goes to the lake to search for evidence, and to their shock, they find more bodies wrapped the exact same way as Elida, tied with the same rope. This means the killer is the same. Feriha reports that 4 bodies were recovered from the lake, some of them dead for nearly a year, completely disfigured by the water. Önem realizes they are dealing with a serial killer. At the morgue, Önem urges Feriha to focus all her efforts on determining if the bodies are linked, and to find anything at all, that could lead them to the killer. Later, Önem and Serdar are in the car when Sofia calls. She tells Önem she found Yalçın's first wife, alive, living in Sweden under a new name, Güneş. Burke then finds a bracelet on the wrist of one of the recovered victims and identifies her as Deniz, the name engraved on the bracelet. She had gone missing 2 months earlier. He informs Önem immediately. Önem and her team visit Deniz's home and speak with her father. She asks if anyone came to the house after Deniz disappeared. He says only the police came when he filed the report. He also tells Önem that Deniz suffered from epilepsy. At that moment, Burke notices hidden cameras installed inside the electrical panel, meaning the killer had entered Deniz's home and planted the cameras to watch her. When Serdar gets too close, the camera suddenly burns out. They realize the killer killer must have remotely destroyed it after sensing they discovered it. The investigation then reveals that Deniz was divorced, and the team concludes the killer is targeting divorced women. Burke manages to identify the man who installed the electrical panel in Deniz's home. His name is Çetin Asak, and he'd been in prison a month earlier for forgery and fraud. They arrest him, and Serdar interrogates him. Çetin tells him he sold these panels to several people, but one man bought 52 of them. When Sofia reviews the security footage from Çetin's shop, they see a man hiding his face. Çetin tells them this is the person who bought all the electrical panels from him. Önem notices a logo printed on the man's clothing and asks Burke to enhance it any way he can. Later, Önem meets with Haluk, who angrily tells her she has only 7 hours left to catch the killer because the case has dragged on too long. Önem is frustrated and stressed. She gathers her team, and Burke explains that he tried to clarify the logo but still couldn't make it clear. At that moment, Serdar suddenly remembers. It's the same logo used by the internet company that all the victims were subscribed to. The next day, Hasan and Sofia go to the internet company and ask management for the names of the technicians who visited Aleda's home recently. They learn that an employee named Erkut was there, so they go to his office and arrest him. Erkut appears mentally unstable, and when they search his home, Burke finds women's shoes and other belongings from the victims he murdered. During the interrogation, Erkut immediately confesses that he installed the hidden cameras in the victims' homes. He considers himself an artist and recites the names of the 4 victims proudly. He explains how he entered their homes easily through his job as an internet support technician. Önem interrupts him and asks if he killed the victims because they were divorced, and whether he hated divorced women because his wife had left him. Erkut begins to twitch angrily. He tells Önem that women like her try to challenge and equal men, so he enjoys getting rid of them one after another. He laughs hysterically, showing no sign of guilt or regret. Later, Haluk comes in and congratulates the team for catching such a dangerous criminal. But Önem and Serdar tell him Erkut is not the killer. Feriha reported that the killer is right-handed, but Erkut is left-handed. Also, Erkut is a mentally unstable voyeur who spies on women because he hates them, not a sadistic predator who tortures and assaults them. Haluk becomes furious and orders the case transferred to the prosecutor's office. Önem and her team are crushed. As soon as he leaves, Serdar storms into Erkut's cell and starts beating him violently, demanding he reveal who the real killer is, knowing Erkut must have seen him through the cameras. Önem decides not to stop him, but Hasan panics, afraid Serdar will be fired or punished, and pulls him away. Erkut then tells them the killer will strike again tonight, smiling with excitement as he says it. Önem is horrified. Sofia checks the employee list of the technicians who worked with Erkut because the killer must be someone close to him. Hasan suddenly recognizes one of the names, Doğan Rauf, who used to work with Erkut before being fired. Through the investigation, they discover that Doğan's house is close to the lake and that his mother divorced his father to marry her lover. Later, both his mother and her lover were found strangled, meaning Doğan killed them. Önem and the team rush to Doğan's house, but he's not there. They find multiple monitors inside, screens showing live feeds from hidden cameras installed in the homes of his victims. Önem is shocked when she sees one of the screens showing Feriha and her daughter Sude sitting together at home. She rushes out immediately. Sofia and the team stay behind to monitor the situation through the cameras. Suddenly, they see Doğan approaching Feriha's house. Sofia calls Önem right away to warn her. At that exact moment, Doğan enters Feriha's home, pretending to be from the internet company's technical support team. Suddenly, he pulls out the electric stun gun he was hiding. Sude sees it and freezes in fear. Feriha tries to calm him down, telling him she'll give him any money he wants. But Doğan isn't after money. He wants to kill her because she is divorced. In his mind, divorced women are dishonorable and unfaithful, and their lives must end, just like every woman he targets. At that moment, Feriha manages to grab a kitchen knife to defend herself. Sude finds a wooden stick in the house and hits Doğan with it to help her mother. But he overpowers her, takes the stick from her hand, and uses it to choke Feriha. Just then, Önem arrives and fires a shot at Doğan, saving them. She immediately holds her daughter tightly, calming her and reassuring her that she's safe. Haluk and Gökhan arrive and thank Önem and her team for solving the case. A few days later, police receive a report about another female body found in the forest, naked and tied with a rope. That night, we see Önem running a sting operation to arrest a man named Tariq. The next day at the station, Önem interrogates Tariq. She shows him photos of the 4 victims found in the same location, all killed in the same way. All of them were in contact with him shortly before they died. Tariq calmly admits he killed 3 of them, but denies knowing or killing the fourth victim, Niloufar. Önem tells him Niloufar was found dead the exact same way as his victims, naked, tied with rope. Tarek tells her he saw the news and was shocked that someone was copying him. He says, "This world isn't safe. People imitate anything." His demeanor shows he is mentally unstable. The next day, Önem goes to Feriha and asks her to re-examine Niloufar's body. Feriha tells her that Niloufar was strangled with rope while the other victims were strangled by hand. This confirms Önem's suspicion. There is a second killer, someone other than Tarek. Through further investigation, Önem and her team learned that Niloufar was 37 years old, a journalist, and had lived in Belgium for 17 years. She returned to Turkey a little over a month ago. She was married to a man named Michael. Önem and her team also obtained Niloufar's notebook. They find 2 letters written repeatedly, MS. Önem visits the newspaper office where Niloufar worked. She meets Umut, who becomes visibly nervous the moment he sees her. He even drops the glass in his hand. Önem asks to speak to the newspaper's owners. Umut turns out to be the son of Farid and Melody, the owners. They tell Önem that Niloufar was an excellent journalist and well known in Europe. Önem asks to see Niloufar's office. Inside, she notices many papers pinned to the walls, including one sheet with the name of a company Niloufar was investigating. Meanwhile, Serdar and Hassan visit Kamaran, Niloufar's uncle. Kamaran tells them she hasn't contacted him in years. They also learn that Kamaran's son suffers from multiple sclerosis, MS. This reminds them of the letters MS, written in Niloufar's notebook. Önem and Hassan then go to the company Niloufar was investigating. They meet Stephen, head of security. He refuses to let them inside, saying company protocol forbids outsiders. When Önem shows him Niloufar's photo, Stephen quickly claims he doesn't recognize her. Too quickly, without even properly looking. He insists he can't answer any further questions without a formal warrant. Hassan then tries to contact Levent, the company owner, but strangely, he cannot reach him at all. Later, Önem vents to Serdar about how upset she is that Metin, who killed Elif, only received an 18-year sentence instead of the death penalty. At that moment, Feriha calls Önem and tells her she found soil inside Niloufar's stomach and cuts inside her mouth. This means the killer forced her to eat dirt while she was still alive. During the investigation, Önem learns that Levent's company uses toxic metals that contaminate soil and that Niloufar had discovered this. Suddenly, at that exact moment, Levent enters the office with Haluk. Haluk tells Önem and her team that he has known Levent for years, since his company frequently helps the police with technical support. Levent sits down with Önem and tells her he's there to help in any way she needs because he wants the killer caught just as much as they do. He claims that someone hacked the company's system and stole important data, and he suspects Niloufar. Önem is shocked because this gives Niloufar a motive someone could use against her. Levent tells her that even if Niloufar did steal data, it doesn't incriminate them. There's nothing in those files that could damage the company. Soon after, Önem learns that the prosecutor denied her request for a search warrant for Levent's company. She must first prove that the soil found in Niloufar's stomach matches the soil used at the company. That night, we see Serdar sneaking into Levent's company building without being seen, attempting to collect a soil sample. He succeeds. When Burke analyzes the soil sample Serdar brought and compares it with the soil found in Niloufar's stomach, he discovers a perfect match. This means the soil came from the same place. With this evidence, Önem is able to obtain a search warrant for Levent's company. The next day, Önem and the police arrive at the company to conduct the search. Levent and Stephen arrive with security officer Yasin to verify that Önem indeed has a legal warrant. During the search, Burke finds Niloufar's camera. He pressures Stephen and Yasin until Yasin finally confesses that he is the one responsible. Önem is shocked. At the police station, Yasin explains that he saw Niloufar sneaking into the company late at night. He attacked her, took her camera, removed the memory card, and threw the camera away. When she hit him, he lost control and assaulted her, then forced soil into her mouth. She was still alive at that point. He then called his colleague Shavat to help him drag her outside and dump her. He tells them they can confirm his story through the security cameras. Later, Önem sits with Stephen and demands to know why he hid everything from the beginning and how he allowed his employees to treat anyone so violently. Stephen claims he fired Yasin and Shavat to protect the company's reputation. He also insists that what happened was Niloufar's fault for sneaking into the building. He then hands Önem the memory card from Niloufar's camera. Sophia opens the card, and they find that nearly all the photos are of Niloufar with Umut, meaning they had a close relationship. The next day, Önem and Serdar go to the newspaper to question Umut. As soon as he sees them, he becomes extremely nervous and sneaks away. Serdar catches him in the hallway, trying to hide Niloufar's laptop. Umut tells Serdar that Niloufar was like a big sister and even a mother figure to him. She gave him the laptop and asked him to hide it in case anything happened to her. He then admits that he was the one who hacked Levent's company because he wanted to help her, but Levent mistakenly believed Nilüfer was the hacker and suspected her of espionage. Serdar takes the laptop and Önem confronts Farad and Melody, telling them she found many intimate photos of Umut and Nilüfer, clearly indicating that the two were in a close relationship. Farad becomes upset and angry, feeling that Önem is trying to drag his son into the crime, so he leaves her and Melody and walks out. Melody then begins telling Önem that during her teenage years, Nilüfer was raped by her aunt's husband. She became pregnant, but sadly, the baby died shortly after birth. Nilüfer spent her whole life wishing to marry and have children, only to later discover she could never become pregnant again. That's why she always treated Umut as if he were her own son, especially because of the age gap between them. Right after that, Sophia calls Önem and tells her that there was a phone call between the newspaper and Nilüfer's aunt 10 days ago that lasted 12 minutes. They suspect Nilüfer herself made that call. Hasan goes to visit the aunt, informing her that they know her husband assaulted Nilüfer. The aunt becomes visibly distressed and explains that Nilüfer called her to tell her she had found a possible treatment for the aunt's son. She continues, explaining that she refused Nilüfer's help because she knew her son's condition was hopeless and incurable, and she didn't want to push Nilüfer into attempting something impossible. She tells Hasan about her marriage to Qasim, that she married him very young and lived in constant fear because he was violent and abusive. When she learned what he had done to Nilüfer, she wanted to help her and eventually sent her to relatives abroad. Hasan asks where Qasim is now, and she tells him he died in a car accident 15 years ago. Back at the police station, Serdar brings Nilüfer's laptop to Sophia so she can try to unlock it, but at that exact moment, Haluk enters with Levent. Haluk tells them they cannot open the laptop because Levent has an official memo preventing anyone from accessing it. Levent insists that the laptop contains private company information he doesn't want exposed. Önem tells him that the laptop is evidence in an active murder investigation, and she has every right to see what's on it. But Stephen and Levent both insist they will not allow their company's secrets to be accessed by anyone and expect Önem to understand their position. They hand her an official memorandum permitting the police to take the laptop but forbidding them from opening it. Önem and her team are shocked, frustrated, and discouraged, unsure how they will continue solving the case. A few days later, Sophia calls Önem, having discovered something new. When Önem arrives to meet with her team, she finds Gökhan with them. They explain they found a listening device hidden in their office. Someone has been spying on them and learning everything about the investigation. They suspect Stephen. Burke compares the fingerprints on the device with Stephen's and finds an exact match. Önem immediately goes to arrest Stephen for spying on and monitoring the police and demands that he hand over Nilüfer's laptop. Stephen responds coldly, telling her he was planning to bring her the laptop anyway since they no longer needed it. Back at the station, Önem and her team discover that the laptop's hard drive is completely destroyed. Burke tries everything to repair it, and after many attempts, he finally succeeds. They find files containing DNA matching tests between Nilüfer and Umut, proving Umut is Nilüfer's biological son. The next day, Hasan and Serdar go back to see Nilüfer's aunt and ask her to tell them the full truth now that they know Umut is Nilüfer's child. The aunt explains that when Qasim raped Nilüfer and she became pregnant, she was working at Farad's newspaper. When Farad learned what happened, he offered to take the child after its birth and worked with the aunt to convince Nilüfer that the baby had died during delivery, since Farad and Melody were unable to have children. The aunt says she refused at first, but because of her own son's expensive medical treatment, she eventually agreed after Farad promised to cover all the costs. After Nilüfer gave birth, they told her the baby died and sent her abroad. But 2 months ago, Nilüfer returned, knowing the entire truth. She confronted the aunt, realizing she had done what she did to save her own child and help him survive. Hasan asks Nilüfer's aunt if she ever told Farad that Nilüfer had discovered the truth. She denies it completely, explaining that she didn't say a word because she feared he would stop paying for her son's medical treatment. At the same time, Önem is interrogating Farad and Melody. She asks them why they lied and claimed Umut was their biological child when he is actually Nilüfer's son. She shows them the DNA results recovered from Nilüfer's laptop. Melody is shocked, confused, and unable to understand what's happening because all she ever knew was what Farad told her, that they were adopting Umut from an orphanage. With no way out, Farad finally admits that he ended Nilüfer's life because he was terrified she would take Umut away from them after all these years. Melody is devastated by his confession. Önem tells him that Nilüfer never planned to take her son back. She had only returned to treat Umut's MS, a disease he inherited from his biological father, Niloufer's aunt's husband. She had realized her son was sick just like her aunt's child because the disease is hereditary, shocking both Farad and Melody. Later, Melody tells Umut the truth. Broken and overwhelmed, he rushes to the morgue to see his mother's body. Afterward, Önem meets with Gökhan, who thanks her for solving the case and acknowledges the extraordinary effort she and her team put in. He also informs her that he has filed an appeal in Metin's case, demanding the death penalty instead of the previous sentence. Önem becomes emotional and relieved. Finally, Hasan gathers the team and tells them that his daughter's life was taken years ago, and he needs their help to find the killer. The team promises him they will uncover the truth and stand by his side until they get justice.